The stars went quiet that night. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that presses down on your chest and makes every thought feel small. Humanity had been cast out, exiled from the greater galactic order, thrown into the void with nothing but the planet they had once called home. For centuries, the other species had watched, studied, and finally decided that humans were too reckless, too unpredictable, too dangerous to mingle with the civilizations that spanned the stars. And yet, it was that very chaos, that untamed spark, that would ignite something no one could have foreseen. On Earth, the remnants of humanity didn't crumble. They didn't beg or plead at the gates of distant empires. They vanished from the eyes of the galaxy, slipping into hidden corners of their own world, gathering knowledge, resources, and ambition in ways the exiling powers never imagined. What was seen as banishment became a crucible. The planet that once teetered on environmental collapse, political strife, and internal conflict began transforming quietly, deliberately, under the guidance of humans who refused to accept their place at the bottom of the cosmic hierarchy. Every city, every hidden facility, every shadowed laboratory was a step toward something greater. And slowly, like a silent storm gathering in the distance, Earth began building a single empire. Not just another nation or coalition, but an empire unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. One where technology and strategy intertwined seamlessly with human cunning and resilience. The rest of the universe, confident that humanity had been tamed or broken, had no idea what was stirring in the hidden corners of their banished world. This wasn't just survival, it was reinvention. Humans learned to harness energy sources that were dismissed by other civilizations as unstable or impossible. They developed fleets that could move silently through space, unnoticed by the sensors of galactic patrols. They experimented with tactics that were considered reckless, even suicidal, by other species, and yet, time and time again, these strategies worked. Each small victory, each hidden breakthrough, was a brick in the foundation of a new Earth empire that would one day challenge the galaxy itself. And yet, for all the innovation and quiet triumphs, the humans themselves were not a united front. Leaders rose and fell in secrecy, rival factions tested loyalties, and ideological battles simmered beneath the surface. The empire was forming, but its heart was beating unevenly, a mix of brilliance, stubbornness, and ambition. Every success came with a cost, every victory was a whisper of tension, and every secret could one day ignite disaster. In the shadows of these hidden cities, one figure walked through the labyrinth of command centers, observation decks, and war rooms. Their face was unremarkable, easily overlooked, yet the decisions they made would ripple across the planet and eventually the galaxy. Plans were laid, alliances were tested, and every move was calculated to ensure that when humanity finally returned to the stars, it would do so not as a minor player, but as a force that could not be ignored. Meanwhile, beyond Earth, the galactic powers went about their business, smug in their certainty that humanity had been dealt a final hand. Reports trickled in of strange signals, fleeting anomalies, and whispers of hidden construction, but no one paid them serious attention. They believed humanity had been contained, that exile had stripped them of their edge. And that was humanity's greatest advantage. The galaxy, confident and careless, had no idea that a hidden empire was rising, an empire built not on the arrogance of the stars, but on the relentless, resourceful, and cunning spirit of humans. And then one night everything changed. An untraceable fleet emerged from the hidden sectors of the solar system, their technology and coordination unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed. Planets long considered safe found themselves under surveillance, their defenses studied and bypassed with unnerving precision. Humanity, once dismissed, had become a silent shadow moving through the stars. But no empire rises without risk. The actions of this new Earth empire had caught the attention of the Galactic Council, the ruling coalition that had cast humanity out in the first place. And now, the Council was preparing a response, one that could ignite war across systems that had never known true conflict. The question was no longer whether humanity could survive. It was whether the galaxy was ready to face what it had underestimated for so long. And as the hidden fleets moved into position, as secret alliances tightened, and as the first signs of humanity's return reached the ears of distant rulers, A single truth became clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The fleets moved like shadows across the black canvas of space, silent but purposeful. Inside the command hubs, hidden deep beneath Earth's surface, the hum of machinery and the steady blinking of control panels were the only signs of life. Human eyes scanned every incoming data stream, every anomaly, every whisper of distant activity, but all of it was filtered through layers of secrecy and calculation. This was not just a preparation for war, it was a preparation for dominance. The Empire was still young, still fragile in many ways, yet it had a clarity of purpose that no outside force could fully anticipate. Centuries of exile had shaped humans in ways the galaxy could not understand. The lessons of scarcity, isolation, and betrayal had forced them to become resourceful in ways that bordered on genius. Entire planets had been repurposed as laboratories, training grounds, or strategic outposts. Humanity had learned to hide in plain sight, to build technology that was invisible to conventional scans, to anticipate movements of other civilizations before they themselves realized what they were doing. Every breakthrough was a statement. Humans had not only survived, they had evolved, and in secrecy they had become something new. Among the strategists and engineers, there were those who remembered the old Earth, the wars and conflicts that had nearly torn the planet apart before the exile began. Their stories were not told in classrooms or history books. They were etched into the minds of those who carried the responsibility of rebuilding a civilization from scratch. These elders spoke in hushed tones of what it had meant to be rejected, of the humiliation of watching more advanced species dictate the fate of humanity. And yet, beneath that memory was a relentless drive, a hunger to prove that humans could not be ignored. Technology had become an art form. Every ship, every weapon system, every hidden communication network was designed with precision and cunning. Engineers argued endlessly over details that outsiders would consider trivial: every curve of a hull, every code line in a control program, every algorithm for predicting enemy movements. It was a blend of creativity and calculation that reflected the dual nature of humanity: impulsive, emotional, unpredictable, yet capable of extraordinary foresight when survival demanded it. But as the Empire grew in secrecy, so did the dangers within. Rival factions emerged, each believing it had the ultimate vision for humanity's return to the stars. Some sought diplomacy, others dominance. Some wanted to strike first against potential enemies, while others argued for patience and observation. The Empire was united in purpose, yes, but fractured in philosophy, and that tension added an undercurrent of suspense to every decision. Trust was rare, loyalty was tested constantly, and every mistake could be fatal. Beyond Earth, the galaxy slept under the illusion that humanity had been tamed. Reports of strange energy signatures, unexplained fleet movements, and occasional disappearances were dismissed as anomalies, natural phenomena, or the result of miscalculations by local systems. The Council of Alien Species, confident in its superiority, had no idea that every report was a breadcrumb leading to something far greater. The hidden empire was patient, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal itself. And in patience lay power. Humans had also learned to turn the galaxy's assumptions against it. Propaganda, misinformation, and carefully orchestrated secrecy became tools of war before a single shot was fired. Enemies could not strike what they could not see, and allies could not predict what humans would do next. The Empire's leaders knew that the first encounter with the wider galaxy would define the next century, and they prepared not only to survive it but to rewrite the rules entirely. Within the Empire, individuals carried stories of sacrifice and ambition that were as inspiring as they were dangerous. Soldiers trained in zero-gravity combat, scientists pushed the limits of energy and propulsion, and spies moved through enemy systems undetected, gathering intelligence that would be worth more than entire fleets. Each human was part of a vast interconnected network, and each network thread held secrets that could unravel the galaxy if exposed. Yet, even in this careful orchestration, unpredictability remained a human trait: flashes of brilliance and recklessness that could create miracles or disasters in equal measure. And then there were the Watchers, who kept an eye on the Galactic Council itself. Humans had learned patience, yes, but they had also learned to strike fear before revealing themselves fully. Communications intercepted, battle simulations run against projected movements. Weaknesses cataloged, every detail was a potential advantage. The Council, confident and rigid, had assumed control over the galaxy was uncontested. Humanity's return would challenge every assumption they had ever held. Yet, even as the hidden empire reached unprecedented strength, a question hung over every decision, a shadow that no technology or strategy could erase. When would the galaxy discover them? And what would happen when it did? Humanity was ready in ways the Council could not imagine, but readiness came with tension, and tension often led to mistakes. The quiet, calculated rise of Earth's secret empire was a story the galaxy had never expected, but whether it would be a story of triumph or destruction had yet to be written. The stars outside Earth's atmosphere seemed calm, but the calm was deceptive. Beneath that placid surface, a storm was gathering, one that would not only shake the foundations of the galaxy, but also test the very spirit of humanity. Every hidden fleet, every secret project, every whispered strategy was moving toward a moment that none could fully predict, and when that moment came, nothing would ever be the same again. The first signs of change came quietly, almost imperceptibly, in the systems nearest to the Galactic Council's borders. Sensors that had been trusted for centuries began picking up anomalies, fleeting energy bursts, gaps in patrol patterns, small fleets appearing and disappearing without explanation. Most dismissed these as glitches or random cosmic events, but a few sharp-eyed analysts began whispering about the possibility of a hidden power. None of them guessed it was humanity, hidden and growing, patient and relentless. Within Earth's hidden empire, tension ran deeper than any outsider could perceive. Leaders gathered in dimly lit war rooms, maps of the stars glowing on holographic panels. Each discussion was layered with strategy, secrecy, and mistrust. Factions debated endlessly. Should humanity strike first and assert its dominance, or should they continue building their strength in silence? Some argued that revealing even the smallest fleet could compromise decades of work. Others countered that hesitation could let the Council anticipate their moves, turning their advantage into vulnerability. Every voice carried weight, but every decision carried risk. Meanwhile, spies embedded in neighboring systems reported on the Council's growing unease. Fleet commanders noted new patrol routes, communication blackouts, and shifts in alliances. Humanity's strategists studied each movement with meticulous care, predicting reactions, testing contingencies, and preparing for every possible scenario. Each success strengthened their confidence, but each risk reminded them that a single mistake could undo everything. Trust within the empire itself was fragile, as subplots of rivalry, ambition, and secret agendas simmered beneath the surface. Some factions sought power over others, using the external threat of the Council as justification for consolidating authority. Others quietly worked to unify resources, arguing that the future of humanity depended on cohesion, not conflict. Among the scientists and engineers, breakthroughs came with their own dilemmas. Experimental energy weapons could disrupt entire fleets, but their reliability was untested in large-scale operations. Communication systems could send messages across light years instantaneously, but they were vulnerable to interception by skilled Council operatives. Every innovation brought hope and danger in equal measure. The Empire thrived on ingenuity, but ingenuity alone could not guarantee survival. It required discipline, foresight, and sometimes ruthless decision-making, and not everyone agreed on how far was too far. Beyond Earth, the Galactic Council began to notice patterns too consistent to ignore. Planets previously considered quiet reported minor disturbances, structures appearing overnight, colonies mysteriously vanishing, and resources disappearing without a trace. These events sparked fear and suspicion among Council members, but they lacked proof. Their confidence, once uncheckable, was starting to crack. Humans had become a shadow that moved too cleverly to catch, an unknown variable in a system that believed it understood everything. Back within the Empire, whispers of internal sabotage created new tension. One faction suspected another of leaking information to the Council, of trying to manipulate the Empire from within. Trust eroded in private conversations, while outwardly everyone maintained the careful image of unity. Orders were given, countermeasures implemented, and surveillance increased not just on enemies outside, but on humans inside the Empire itself. Paranoia became a tool, as much a weapon as any ship or weapon system. Meanwhile, scouts operating at the edges of Council space faced their own dangers. They moved through sectors controlled by species that had long considered humanity irrelevant. Every encounter was a gamble. Some scouts returned with intelligence that confirmed humans' growing strength. Others vanished without explanation, leaving only fragments of encrypted data for their commanders to decode. These losses were mourned silently, their memory folded into the calculations of the Empire. Every setback became part of the strategy, every casualty a lesson in precision and patience. On the political front, subtle power plays began unfolding across Earth itself. Some leaders advocated for bold action, believing humanity's survival demanded they strike fear into the Council before the Council struck first. Others cautioned that overreach could provoke a war humanity was not yet ready to win. Debates turned into heated arguments and arguments into quiet plots. In the corridors of command, alliances shifted almost daily, a reflection of humanity's complexity and its unpredictable nature. The tension built in other ways too. News of unexpected technological flashes in distant systems reached the Empire's intelligence networks. The Council, increasingly alarmed, began mobilizing fleets in response, but the humans watching them knew the Council still underestimated the scope of their power. It was a dangerous game. Push too early, and the Empire could expose itself. Wait too long, and the Council could close the net. Timing had become everything, and every heartbeat carried the weight of consequence. Even among ordinary humans living under the Empire's protection, uncertainty lingered. Training, preparation, and indoctrination were part of daily life. Children learned strategy alongside science, citizens practiced resilience alongside loyalty. And stories of the exile became legends, reminders that survival was never given, only earned. These stories fueled ambition and determination, but they also carried anxiety. Every human knew that when the Empire finally revealed itself, nothing would be the same, and many wondered whether they were ready for what was coming. As the hidden fleets readied for the moment that might never come, every angle of the conflict deepened. From internal rivalries to external surveillance, from experimental weapons to shadowed spies, the Empire's growth was inseparable from its risks. The tension between patience and action, secrecy and revelation, loyalty and ambition, threaded through every decision, every calculation, and every heartbeat. Humanity's return to the stars was inevitable, but the question that lingered, heavy and unrelenting, was how the galaxy would respond, and whether Earth's hidden empire could survive the consequences of its own rise. Every moment brought the hidden empire closer to the edge, and every decision echoed across the shadows of space. The fleets assembled in secret sectors, silent and waiting, their engines humming with restrained power. On Earth, the command centers were alive with tension, every screen, every map, every blinking light a reminder that the Empire's patience had limits. Humans moved through the corridors with purpose, but behind their calm faces lay anticipation and unease. The galaxy was about to wake up to a force it had dismissed for centuries, and no one could predict the consequences. Reports continued to arrive from scouts probing Council territories. Each transmission was more alarming than the last. Patrols bypassed without detection, supply routes disrupted, communications intercepted. Humans in the Empire studied the data meticulously, tracing patterns, testing possibilities, and preparing for contingencies. Every anomaly was a potential advantage, but also a warning. The Council was beginning to sense a presence it could not yet define, and the humans knew that the window for secrecy was closing. Internal conflicts reached a fevered pitch as factions within the Empire debated timing. Some advocated an immediate demonstration of power to intimidate the Council before it could organize a response. Others argued for patience, for more preparation, for exploiting weaknesses without revealing the full scope of humanity's strength. Meetings grew heated. Strategies were argued over, rewritten, and argued again. Even among allies, suspicion lingered. Who was loyal? Who sought personal gain? Every move carried weight, and even a single misstep could fracture the delicate network of unity that held the Empire together. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Council began to mobilize. Ships were redirected, intelligence networks expanded, and emergency protocols activated. Panic flickered in the eyes of some council members, though outwardly they maintained composure. They did not yet know the full scale of humanity's power, but the cracks were visible. The subtle anomalies, the strange disappearances, the whispered reports, all of it hinted at something growing in secret, something capable of challenging the authority that had cast humanity aside. Within the Empire, the engineers and scientists worked tirelessly. Advanced weapon systems were tested under extreme conditions, communication networks secured, and new propulsion technologies refined. Every breakthrough increased the Empire's advantage, but the work was dangerous and the margin for error slim. Some experiments failed spectacularly, leaving scars on both machines and humans alike. Every failure was documented, every mistake analyzed, every success amplified. The tension was tangible, a constant pressure that pushed everyone toward perfection, yet reminded them how fragile even the strongest foundation could be. At the same time, spies embedded within council space reported whispers of growing suspicion. Some council members had begun piecing together fragments of humanity's resurgence, yet they lacked confirmation. Human strategists used this to their advantage, planting misinformation, creating false trails, and manipulating perceptions. Every intercepted message, every misinterpreted movement, every accidental encounter was turned into a tool of psychological warfare. The Council believed it was in control, but the humans watching them knew the truth. Control was an illusion, and the Empire had been orchestrating the narrative for decades. On Earth, the ordinary citizens were not idle observers. Training programs, simulations, and emergency protocols had become daily routines. Children learned strategy alongside science, civilians learned tactics alongside survival skills. The narrative of exile and return was drilled into every mind. Humanity had been cast out, yes, but it would return on its own terms, stronger than any who had dismissed it. Pride, fear, ambition, and loyalty intertwined, creating a population both resilient and restless, ready for the Empire's emergence yet aware that the moment would come at tremendous cost. As the hidden fleets moved into their final positions, communication networks buzzed with coded messages. Commands were issued and acknowledged with precision, every ship synchronized, every system checked, every contingency mapped. Leaders walked through dimly lit halls, their eyes sharp, their minds racing. The tension was almost unbearable. One wrong calculation, one missed signal, could expose the Empire prematurely. Yet in that tension lay clarity. Every human involved understood the stakes, and every heartbeat carried the knowledge that history was about to be rewritten. Then came the first tangible signs that the Council had begun to suspect something more serious. Fleets were redirected, sensors intensified, and patrols became more aggressive. Skirmishes erupted in sectors that had previously been calm, testing humanity's patience and restraint. The humans observed silently, analyzing every reaction, predicting moves before they happened, refining strategies even as the danger increased. Every encounter, every choice, every observation raised the stakes, making it clear that the coming confrontation would not be a simple demonstration of power, it would be a battle of wits, will, and endurance. Even within the Empire, tension sparked unexpected conflicts. Rival factions pushed against each other, questioning timing, strategy, and loyalties. Some whispered of taking unilateral action, believing their approach to be superior. Others argued for unity, insisting that patience and coordination were the only way to ensure success. Arguments flared, tempered only by the knowledge that failure would be catastrophic. Every human involved felt the weight of history pressing down, a pressure that sharpened focus but also magnified the smallest doubt. And then, as the fleets settled into their positions, as the Council moved in response, and as every hidden system held its breath, an unspoken understanding settled over humanity. The moment was near. The first contact, the first demonstration of true power, would happen soon, and the galaxy would no longer be able to ignore the Empire that had risen in the shadows. The tension was electric, the stakes impossible to overstate, and every human, every machine, every strategy was poised at the edge of the unknown. The calm before the storm was ending. Every sensor, every map, Every shadowed corridor held the promise of revelation, and every heartbeat carried the knowledge that when the first move came, nothing, no alliance, no planet, no civilization would ever be the same again. Just as the hidden empire seemed perfectly poised for its first strike, an unexpected alert rippled through the command centers. It wasn't a misfire or a sensor glitch. This was something deliberate, something the humans had not predicted. Deep within a remote sector of the galaxy, a fleet of unknown origin had appeared, moving with precision that rivaled the Council itself. No prior intelligence had hinted at their existence. No warning signals had been intercepted. And yet, here they were, occupying a position that threatened to cut off Earth's secret corridors and compromise the Empire's carefully laid plans. Panic didn't break out immediately. Humans were trained to respond to chaos, to think quickly and act decisively. But the presence of an unknown power raised questions no one had answers to. Who were they? Were they an independent force, a rogue faction of the Council, or something entirely new? And most importantly, had they been observing humanity for as long as the Council had? The hidden empire had spent decades building secrecy, manipulating perception, and studying every possible reaction from known civilizations. But this was uncharted territory. The fleet's appearance forced every faction within the empire to react. Commanders who had been locked in debates over timing now faced a new dilemma. Proceed with the planned demonstration against the Council or divert resources to investigate and contain this unforeseen threat. Arguments erupted in war rooms, strategies were rewritten on the fly, and spies were deployed to gather immediate intelligence. The sense of control that humans had maintained for decades wavered under the weight of uncertainty. Even the most confident leaders recognized that a miscalculation could be fatal. Meanwhile, the unknown fleet's movements were precise, almost surgical. They didn't attack. They simply positioned themselves in a way that created uncertainty and tension. Supply lines were threatened, patrol routes disrupted, and observation posts left in precarious positions. The Empire's scouts reported unusual technology, shields that seemed to adapt in real time, weapon systems that anticipated moves, and communication protocols that bypassed known detection methods. The humans watching these movements realized immediately that this wasn't just a threat, it was a challenge, one that could undermine decades of planning. Back on Earth, civilians and workers in hidden facilities felt the unease in subtle ways. Orders became more urgent, drills intensified, and communication protocols tightened. Ordinary humans were drawn into the tension, aware that the stakes were now higher than ever. Training simulations were revised to include unknown variables, and emergency contingencies were prepared for outcomes that no one had yet imagined. Every person, whether on the front lines of command or in the depths of the Empire's laboratories, understood that the rising storm was now more unpredictable and potentially more dangerous than ever before. Even the Council began to notice anomalies beyond their expectations. They had assumed humanity's rise was the only immediate concern, but reports of the unknown fleet reached their intelligence networks. Confusion spread among Council members. There were whispers of betrayal within their own ranks and speculation that some hidden power had risen independently of known civilizations. The humans of Earth's empire watched this uncertainty with grim satisfaction. The Council's confidence, once unwavering, was cracking, but the new variable introduced by this fleet threatened not just the Council, but humanity's carefully hidden preparations as well. Within the Empire, debates grew more heated. Some factions argued for immediate confrontation with the unknown fleet, fearing that waiting could allow the enemy to consolidate power or form alliances with the Council. Others counseled caution, urging that humanity's advantage lay in patience, in revealing capabilities only when necessary. The tension between these factions reached a breaking point as intelligence reports confirmed that the fleet was intercepting communications and monitoring movements in ways that were previously considered impossible. Secrets were no longer secure, and the humans realized that a misstep could expose the Empire before it had truly arrived on the galactic stage. Complicating matters further, rumors of internal betrayal began to surface. Certain individuals within the Empire were accused of leaking information to unknown forces, either intentionally or through misjudgment. Investigations were launched in secrecy, surveillance intensified, and loyalty was questioned at every level. Every faction had to weigh its ambitions against the survival of the empire itself. Trust, already fragile, became an increasingly scarce commodity. One wrong accusation, one misstep, and centuries of preparation could unravel in an instant. As the unknown fleet continued to shadow human movements, subtle signs suggested that they might not be acting alone. Minor skirmishes with other galactic species indicated that some factions were already aware of Earth's hidden empire, perhaps even colluding with the new power. The humans of Earth realized they were on the brink of a conflict that could involve not just the Council but the wider galaxy. The stakes had multiplied, and what had begun as a careful, calculated return to the stars was transforming into a battle on multiple fronts. And then came the message, fragmented, encoded, impossible to trace completely. It was a warning and a challenge rolled into one. The unknown fleet had been watching, learning, and preparing. They knew more about the hidden empire than the humans had hoped, and they were ready to act. The revelation hit the command centers like a shockwave. Every plan, every simulation, every contingency was now in question. Humanity's patience, ingenuity, and resilience would be tested as never before. The Empire had been preparing to declare itself to the galaxy, but now, the moment had been stolen, and the stage was set for a confrontation that no one could predict. The hidden fleets braced for action, the Council shifted uneasily, and the unknown power waited silently like a predator at the edge of the forest. Tension crackled across the stars, alliances were uncertain, and every heartbeat carried the weight of history about to be rewritten. The Empire's rise had entered its most dangerous phase yet, and nothing, not secrecy, not strategy, not loyalty, would guarantee survival when the first sparks of confrontation ignited. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was no longer in control of how the story would unfold. The tension that had built across the hidden empire reached its breaking point as the unknown fleet closed in on Earth's secret sector. Every human aboard the ships, every strategist in the command centers, every scientist monitoring experimental systems knew that the coming hours would define the future of the species. The fleets aligned in formation, sensors blazing, engines humming with restrained fury. It was a moment of pure anticipation, a heartbeat stretched across space and time, where one misstep could mean annihilation. Then the first move came. Without warning, the unknown fleet launched a coordinated strike, testing human defenses with precision and power that rivaled the most advanced Council warships. Energy pulses arced across the void, striking shields, probing for weaknesses, and forcing the hidden Empire's ships to respond immediately. Humans moved with instinct, training, and a cunning honed over centuries of exile. Countermeasures deployed, stealth systems activated, and experimental weapons flared to life. The void lit up with the clash of technologies, human ingenuity pitted against an enemy that had been invisible until now. Within the Empire, the factions that had argued over timing, patience, and strategy now moved as one, unified by necessity. Rivalries were set aside as fleets coordinated like a single organism, striking with precision and timing that shocked even their own commanders. The unknown fleet, confident in its advantage, began to falter under the relentless pressure. Every human action was a combination of calculated risk and improvisation, unpredictability proving as powerful as superior firepower. The tables had turned, and the hidden empire revealed the full scope of its capabilities. Meanwhile, Earth itself became a nerve center of decisive operations. Commanders directed multiple fronts, monitoring not just the external threat but internal sabotage and potential breaches. Spies who had infiltrated Council space fed back critical intelligence, allowing humans to anticipate movements and counterattacks before they could strike effectively. Every decision, every maneuver, every strategy became a test of coordination and courage. The stakes could not have been higher, and the humans rose to meet them with a combination of creativity, risk, and sheer determination. As the battle escalated, the Council itself realized the enormity of the situation. Their fleets scrambled to intervene, but human forces had already established dominance in key sectors. Tactical brilliance, advanced technology, and adaptability turned what seemed like a desperate defense into a series of decisive counterstrikes. The unknown fleet, now revealed to be a coalition of rogue Council factions, seeking to manipulate the galaxy for their own gain, began to crumble under the coordinated assault. Every strike by humanity was precise, every strategy calculated, and the Empire's decades of secrecy and preparation proved decisive. Amidst the chaos, human leaders on the command bridges made the bold decision to strike at the heart of the enemy's fleet. Stealth ships slipped past defenses, deploying experimental energy disruptors that disabled key vessels without destroying them, leaving their systems paralyzed and vulnerable. In a matter of hours, what had been an overwhelming threat transformed into a situation where humanity controlled the battlefield. The tide had turned, and the hidden empire's rise was now undeniable to the galaxy. Victory, however, came with cost. Ships were damaged, lives were lost, and some experiments failed spectacularly, leaving scars on both humans and machines. The victory was not painless, but it was decisive. The rogue fleet had been neutralized, their plans exposed, and the Council forced to confront the reality of Earth's secret empire. Humans, once exiled, had now returned not as a curiosity or a threat to be dismissed, but as a force whose power could no longer be ignored. Just as the Empire began to consolidate its position, another shock rippled through the command centers. Data streams revealed an anomaly deep within Council-controlled space. A signal unlike any human or Council technology. Ancient and cryptic, yet unmistakably intelligent? The fleet that had been thought defeated was only the first wave. Something older, far more powerful, and previously hidden in the depths of space had taken notice of humanity's emergence. The implications were immediate. The galaxy was far larger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined, and Earth's empire, while victorious, was about to face challenges that could dwarf everything that had come before. Human leaders exchanged grim looks, realizing that the war they had fought was only the beginning. A hidden empire had survived, had conquered its immediate threats, and had declared its presence to the galaxy, but the universe itself had noticed, and it was no longer a place that could be quietly dominated. The scale of the challenge ahead was staggering, and even in victory, humans felt the shadow of a far greater storm approaching. As fleets regrouped and strategies were rewritten, the humans of Earth understood one unshakable truth. They had returned from exile. They had survived, and they had risen, but the next chapter, the confrontation with a power older and stranger than any they had faced, was about to begin. And in that moment, as the stars stretched endlessly before them, the hidden empire braced for a future that no one could predict, where the true test of humanity's ingenuity, resilience, and courage had only just begun. The dust of battle settled slowly across the sectors under humanity's control. The rogue fleet had been defeated, its remnants captured or forced into retreat, and the Council, humbled by the display of Earth's hidden empire, could no longer ignore the humans they had once cast aside. Across command centers and hidden cities, a quiet sense of accomplishment hung in the air, tempered by the awareness that the galaxy was larger, stranger, and far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Humans had survived exile, had risen in secret, and had shown the galaxy what it meant to underestimate Earth, but even in victory, lessons lingered. The internal rivalries that had simmered within the Empire now began to dissolve under the weight of shared triumph. Factions that had once debated strategy now found common purpose. Leaders recognized that unity, not division, was the true source of their power. Decisions were made collectively, alliances strengthened, and trust, carefully rebuilt, became the foundation for the next stage of humanity's return. The Empire was no longer a network of hidden ambitions. It had become a single organism, resilient, intelligent, and ready to face the galaxy openly. Civilians, soldiers, and scientists alike felt the change. Life in the hidden cities and training facilities continued, but with a renewed energy, a sense of hope and pride that their sacrifices had not been in vain. Children trained in strategy and science looked up to the leaders of the Empire with awe, understanding that humanity's exile had forged a resilience unlike any other species in the galaxy. Ordinary humans, once isolated and overlooked, were now part of a civilization that had risen from ashes, proving that determination, ingenuity, and unity could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. The Council, forced to confront reality, began to negotiate with humanity. Terms were discussed, boundaries established, and cautious respect was extended. Humans had earned a seat at the table not through diplomacy alone, but through resilience, strategy, and a willingness to take risks that other civilizations avoided. The exiled had returned, but they had done so on their own terms. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. Casting out humanity was not a punishment. It was an invitation to watch them grow, evolve, and return stronger than ever. Even as negotiations began, the unexpected twist discovered during the climax, the cryptic signal from deep space, remained. Analysts and scientists pored over the data, attempting to decipher its meaning, origin, and intent. Its presence reminded everyone that the universe was vast and that Earth's hidden empire, though victorious today, would face challenges that extended far beyond the Council. The signal became a symbol, a reminder that humanity's story was far from over, and that survival required not only strength but vigilance, adaptability, and courage. Subplots that had threaded through the Empire also reached satisfying conclusions. The spies embedded in Council space returned, their intelligence instrumental in shaping the Empire's final strategies. Rival factions reconciled, understanding that the survival of humanity outweighed personal ambitions. Scientists saw the results of their experimental technologies validated in ways they had only hoped for, their innovations proving decisive in the battles that had secured the Empire's place in the galaxy. Even the families and civilians who had lived under the shadow of secrecy now felt the pride of participation, knowing their lives and work had contributed to humanity's emergence. Reflections on the journey from exile to empire became a shared story. Humanity had been underestimated, dismissed, and cast aside, yet in that isolation they had forged ingenuity, resilience, and unity that no other civilization could replicate. They had learned patience and timing, creativity and risk-taking, strategy and improvisation. The lessons of exile became the pillars of their hidden empire, proving that adversity could create strength, and that survival required more than technology. It demanded spirit, determination, and an unyielding belief in one's own potential. As fleets returned to hidden ports, repairs were made, resources redistributed, and strategies rewritten for the future. Humans began to look beyond survival and dominance, planning exploration, diplomacy, and continued preparation for the mysteries hinted at by the cryptic deep space signal. While the Empire had proven itself capable of defeating immediate threats, the galaxy itself remained full of unknowns, vast and unpredictable. Humanity had learned that power required vigilance, and that the story of their rise was only the beginning of a much larger narrative. The stars stretched endlessly above, unchanged in their beauty, but now seen through the eyes of a species that had endured, adapted, and conquered through cunning, courage, and unity. Humanity's exile had ended, their hidden empire had emerged, and the galaxy would never be the same. Yet even in triumph, humans understood that the universe was far larger than any single victory, and that the lessons of exile, the value of patience, ingenuity, and resilience would guide them through the challenges ahead. In the quiet aftermath, a single thought resonated across command centers, homes, and hidden cities. Earth had been cast out, but it had returned stronger, smarter, and unstoppable. The galaxy had learned a truth it could not ignore. Humanity was no longer just a species, it was a force. And while the immediate conflict had ended, the universe still held mysteries, dangers, and opportunities that would test the hidden empire in ways no one could predict. Humanity had survived, had risen, and had won, but the story of the stars and the rise of Earth's empire had only just begun.